I'll answer that in a sec, Wayne. We'll come back to that. But let me just quickly hit this because I've hit record and I want to make sure I get this down. Okay. Statement of work. Can everyone see my screen? Can everyone see statement of work? Drop me yes, drop me no. No one can see it? Yeah, cool. All right. So a statement of work, I'll put this inside the in the school. But for a statement of work, you need a few things. The first thing you need is the introduction, right? The introduction, this is just saying the statement of work is issued under the terms and conditions set forth terms of service and the master services agreement, which is an MSA. Do not edit the MSA. I've created an MSA document that we paid our lawyers a lot of money to do it, and I'm going to add it into the school. And I've put in directions of how to use it. All you do is a search and replace for the company and the address, and that's it. Don't touch anything else in the master services agreement. This has all the stuff about compliance. This is all the stuff about data cleaning. Basically, is telling the client, like, look, this is, I'll do what you need, but like you're taking responsibility for this, right? And if they're like, oh, but like, am I allowed to do this? Really, you're not a lawyer, like you can't tell them. But I have created an agreement for you guys for MSAs. Okay, so this references the MSA agreement. Now, if you edit it or you do something to it and then it doesn't work, I can't do anything about that. So I have to put a disclaimer in here that like I'm not a lawyer. We paid lawyers to get this done, but you need to keep it as is. Okay, so that's the first one. There's introduction, and you link that to the statement of work. Then you have the scope of work. Now, this is where you're going to put hyper-specific items in place. When I say hyper-specific, I mean things that you can control. Do not go putting results in here. So don't go putting like, we will drop your cost by 50% as an objective in your scope of work. That's not what it's there for. And you can't control whether you're going to drop their cost by 50% because you could load an audience inside the ads manager and they could run it for $100 and then run it against their broad audience, which has like $10,000 already on it, and then be like, it didn't work, and then turn it off, right? Like that's what's going to happen. So you can't have that in your scope of work. Your scope of work needs to be very, very clear deliverables of just what you're doing. Okay, so something like, instead of running ads, this is how I would do ads: creating consumer front-facing assets for the ads, copywriting and ad creation for Facebook ads, intent data, which includes the attributes such as, and then I'll put just a rough thing here. Okay, for a statement of work and the actual deliverables, well, not deliverables, the physical things you're going to be doing, that's what you need to list here, right? Because that stuff it shouldn't go on here. The rules of this should go on here is, do you have 100% control of it? I'm going to put that in here. Do you have 100% control what is being done? If not, do not add it in. Okay. So that's where you put your scope of work of what you're doing, where you have 100% control of. Then you got your deliverables. Your deliverables are the raw thing that you're going to be delivering. Now, again, this is never going to be the performance results. If you have a client that's like, yeah, you're going to drop my cost by 40%, you don't put that in as a deliverable because you don't have control over that. You have control over 50% of it, the data, the copy, but you're not there closing leads. You're not there, coaching them on how to close. You're not following up the leads. You're not inside the brain of the sales guy. You know what I mean? So you don't have full control of that. You have control of the lead cost. You have control of the ads, but you don't have control of the CPA. So you're going to be very careful you put in deliverables and payment terms. So what usually you would do here is just the raw deliverable. So, you could be service. So, for service product, the first one would be like, okay, so the first thing we'll be doing is create an audience with all the parameters that the client has requested, and then put the parameters in. They want to have this credit score, want to have this, want to have this. Then we'll be layering on intent and then making sure that they're picking like 5 intent segments which work. The next step is, once the client has reviewed the list and has given the okay, then it will go into a daily refresh, which will be sent to their email, right? Like that's an example of the deliverables. It's the things that you 100% control that you can give to the client. Then 4 Facebook ads will be written, right? Then you load the audiences into the ad account for the client. Like you want to get specific here, maybe not that specific, but it has to be something that is actually you have 100% control of, right? So you could just put that in here and then have a cost for that. And then if you're doing a rev share deal, you can put that in here as well. And then you have the frequency of when you want to be paid out from that and how you're going to invoice the client. I'll come back and cover more parts. I put a thing in here as well. It's up to you whether you want to have that in there, that the client pays the management fee or the revenue share, not both. That's something clients really like, because basically you're saying, well, you'll pay my fee until I, hit a certain point, and then you can just pay out of the revenue share. I always do that instead of just going straight to revenue share, because it could take some time to actually get them results, not because the ads don't work, but because they're just not closing anything. Payment details made out to, let's put your wire details, or you put how you're going to invoice them. And then you have timeline. I'll go into that too. These are good questions. I'll keep note of these, and I'll answer these towards the end so I can go for the whole doc first. So timeline, you don't have to have this section if you could even put this inside the objective, or inside of here, you could put this frequency, and then you could put like the date and the ETA of when it could be expected. Otherwise, you can just put a rough timeline of like this first sprint of how long it's going to take, but it has to be specific. So just be careful with this one. For timeline, I would just put in like however long you think it's going to take, and then times it by 2 and say, this is how long it's going to take. This is the most important part of an SOW, and this is the assumptions. This part, I think a lot of people don't have this, and this is why they, even like whether it's data, whether it's AI, whether it's any service for a client, you need to make sure you have some assumptions. So this is basically the expectations that you discussed at the very beginning of what the client has to do. And if the client's like, well, I'm not doing all that, you'd be like, okay, well, I'll do it, and I'll move it over to the deliverables that I'll give to you, but I need to change the pricing. Okay, like you got to be a stickler with that. Otherwise, you're just going to get taken advantage of. You're going to get way outside of scope. Okay, so this is where you outline the expectations of what the client needs to do in order for this to work. So if you are delivering leads for a client, you're taking the agency route and you're just delivering them leads, it goes into their CRM, or maybe you're even setting up the CRM. So you deliver them leads, it goes into their CRM, and they have appointments, and they just have to rock up to the appointment. What would you put in here? You would put in that the client needs to give an end of day report at the end of each day, telling us which leads are good and which leads are bad, so that you can use that to be able to change the ads, right? That's a simple deliverable the client just has to do. If they don't want to do that, then you need to build a system or automation for it and charge accordingly. Like this isn't stuff where they can choose if this happens. Like this has to happen for the client to have success. You're not taking the calls, your client is. So unless your client is actually giving you some feedback, it's not going to work, right? Like that's why it's so dangerous when I see a lot of time, somebody will have a broad audience and they think it's crushing it. Client will be like, yeah, but I'm getting $8 leads just by using Facebook's broad. And then, you put an in-market next to it, costs will go up 2 times. Okay, it'll go up, it'll be double the cost, 3 times the cost. And they're like, oh my gosh, this data sucks. Let's never use this. But if you actually get them to do feedback, they'll see the lead cost is more, but the conversion rate is so much higher because they have better quality leads. I've given an example in here. If you go to the classroom and you go to audience ads, which is the ad guide that we've created for you guys for running ads for clients. Okay, there's 2 methods in there that I recommend of how you run the ads. And, like I don't ever put something in here that, oh, sorry. Yeah. I don't ever put something in here that I don't do myself. So I even put my own examples. Here's an anybody's example that I just wrapped up. You can see here, inside the ad account, you can see the cost increase and things like that. You can see why it works and what to expect, right? I asked the client, this is somebody they were dealing with, like one of those agencies that just specializes in annuities. Like that's all they do. So they would have like a real kind of like factory type setup of how they'd run the ads and everything like that. And we just say, how does this compare to previous vendors? He said it's 10 times better. He was able to get like 2 for 5 out of those deals and actually close them, right? As opposed to before, he was getting not even close to that. Did the lead costs go up? Yes, they did. The CPMs go up? They did. But the quality was so much better that the CPA dropped. The CPA was like 50% of what it was before. Okay, so that's why you need to have your assumptions. So I've got a standard document I've created for you guys. I can't legally say like, hey, this is going to cover you for every single thing you encounter in your entire life. If you're really concerned, you can get a lawyer to check it out, but I've put in most of the stuff in there. But it is a template. It's not a document that my lawyers have written for you, if that makes sense. It's a template that we wrote up. Okay, so any questions on this? The assumptions is probably one of the most important parts. And this is part of the sale could actually be going through this with your client because then you're knocking out all the objections and everything like that actually ahead of the close. So instead of kind of getting them on the phone and telling them the price and sitting in silence for a bit, like the classic, closer technique, you could actually just get on the call and go over the statement of work with them. You could say, have everything ready, say, here's what I propose, blah, 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 and then just get all the objections out of the way, right? And then anything that you find in assumptions the client doesn't want to do, move it up to scope of work, but charge extra for it. Example, oh, I don't have time to do like an end of day sheet each day. Like, I don't know if it's going to be good or not, blah, blah, blah. You say, no worries. What I'll do is I'll set up a parameter inside the pixel, right? Where anytime I get a lead that lands in your site, has a certain credit score or anything like that, I'll fire a tag over to your Facebook pixel, and then we'll see that inside the ad account. It may not be 100% accurate, but it'd be better than what you have. Okay. What's another example? You're telling the client to follow up the leads and they're like, oh, I don't want to follow up the leads. No worries. We'll put in a follow-up system in there. The client might be like, okay, well, I don't know, they'll throw everything at you. You know what I mean? Like, you guys are dealing with the end client. I'm going to put this inside. And both of these are going inside the school. We got these ready today for you guys. That's why I pushed the workshop back because it wasn't ready. Okay, so assumptions. So that's pretty much a statement of work. If you use this, you should be pretty sweet. The reason why this is so powerful is because if you just hop on a call with a client and you go over this, like I wouldn't send this to a client and just be like, have at it. Instead, I would actually get on a screen share with them and go over it because you're going to uncover a lot of objections that would have basically cost you the deal, which you can then move from the assumptions over to the scope of work, right? Like you just get in the assumptions and you say, this is what I need from you in order to make this work, right? And they're going to be like, oh, I don't do that. My team can't do that, blah, blah, blah. Like, no worries. We'll do it for you. We're just going to add it up here though. Okay. It's kind of like the reverse of Alex Hormozi's irresistible offer, right? This is members only school. So our DAS school that we have, the bigger one, is a public school. So if you are here and you're not an audience sub or anything like that, you have access to that. You have access to this recording. I put in a bunch of free stuff there, but the documents, like all this stuff is going inside like the personal one-to-one school, which just has audience sub members. Because I was having people hit me up that I didn't even know. Like they weren't in any program. They were just like, help me run my ads. And I was like, no. Yeah, I'll put it under Classroom. I'll put it under Classroom in documents. You'll see it at the end. All right, any questions on the SOW? Because a lot of people ask me for this, and I want to make sure you've got it down. But not just the SOW, but the whole strategy of how to use this with a client, right? You hop on with a client, you break down, here's the scope of work, here's what we're going to do, here's deliverables, and I would always even go into assumptions. So if you hop on with a client, I'd be like, all right, this stuff's all good, but let's just jump down here real quick and go into the assumptions. For this to work, for you to actually make money, for you to like be happy working with me, so there's not just another agency that, takes you for a ride and you're paying a retainer to, and I don't get anywhere. What are the assumptions we need to put here? Like you need to do this, otherwise I need to do this. Like it's non-negotiable. Someone has to do it to make it work, right? As soon as you get that out, I think you're actually going to build a lot of trust with the client because a lot of people just, they're like, I'll give you 25 appointments, guaranteed all your money back, or I'll write you a check for $1,000. And then Oh, no, 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 no. Like I didn't tell you because it was in the fine print of the document that you have to call every lead 9 times. And then that's how they do it. And it's just kind of gross. You don't have to do that. Like you're already solving a big problem for the client. Just get to the assumptions. Just be like, this is what you got to do. And if the client doesn't want to do it, then you have to do it. And you have to put it into your scope of work. So I want to make it very clear that you got the assumptions and you got the scope of work and deliverables, and you can kind of interchange between them. So by getting on a client going over this, you can take all the things that were going to be an objection, or all the things that were going to be a chargeback, or all the things that were going to be them quitting or anything like that, and you can turn it into a positive and actually make more from it, and they'll thank you for it. And I guarantee no agency has ever outlined things like this because, well, let's be honest, most agencies don't do it like that. They basically do a big proposal, which looks amazing, and then they send this really fine line document that they're hoping the client just doesn't read. They just sign it, right? Like you don't have to have big scary documents. Your state of work can almost act as a proposal to set expectations for the client. All right. Any questions on this specific to the SOW? Um, None. It'll be in the school. Don't worry. It'll be in the school. I just can't post the link because these workshops for everyone. So like a bunch of people come in here, but yeah. Um, cool, cool, cool. Let me hear from, I think Phil, you in here? I know you wanted to jump on the panel. I'm not sure about Phil. We do. He was asking me to put in a panelist. What up, Phil? All right, if you're not
Hey,
in the
hey,
private
hey.
members only school, I'll drop the link and but you have to be like an existing Audience Lab member. So you got to put the email that you signed up with, and I will check. So if you're not an Audience Lab member, you're trying to put in a fake email or something, we will check it. Maybe not today, but tomorrow. At some point, you will get found out. Just do the right thing. Just if you're an Audience Lab member, get in here ASAP. But if you're not, you got to go to the public group, which is still great, but there's just stuff in here in IP that we can't just give to everybody. Because like I've had to like run my own agencies to collect this stuff for you guys, and like it costs a lot. It costs a lot to get the feedback. Okay, so if you want to find where this is, go to data as a service, everything you know about selling data as a service. I might have, maybe I should create a new module so it doesn't get lost in here, and I'll just call it expectation setting. Either way, I'll do that and I'll add it to the doc. One thing as well, let me just pause this so I can go to like the next part.